So this is the brand new Dwarf Mini Smart Telescope. It weighs less than a kilogram, it costs about $400 or euros, and you can set it up and start taking pictures of the night sky in less than 3 minutes. Well, is this all true? Let's find out in this review video where I'm going to take images of the sun, the moon and some awesome deep sky objects in my urban skies using this brand new Dwarf Mini Smart Telescope. I'm Guido and you're watching Guido's Astro Forum. The Dwarf 3 Mini arrived in this compact box with an ND solar filter, a user guide, a cleaning cloth and a USB-C charging cable. The Mini has a standard photo tripod thread, so you can mount it on almost any tripod you already own. Just note that the tripod itself wasn't included. This smart telescope has a 30mm aperture and a 150mm focal length, giving you about a 2.4 degree field of view, roughly 5 times the apparent size of the moon. There's also a 3.4mm wide-angle lens with a huge 50-degree field of view, which helps you to line up objects like the moon for the telephoto lens, and it can also be used for wide Milky Way photos. Inside you'll find a 2-megapixel Sony IMX662 sensor with built-in Astro, Dark and Duo band filters. The Astro filter is ideal for broadband objects like the moon, galaxies and clusters, while the Duo band filter shines in capturing emission nebulae that are rich in ionized hydrogen and oxygen. The Dark filter is perfect for taking optional dark frames before a session to reduce noise in your photos. Astro images are saved as single fits and stacked TIFF files, while daytime photos are stored in JPEG and video and time-lapses are stored as MP4 files. The Dwarf Mini includes 64GB of storage, a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connection, plus a 7000 mAh battery that powers the Mini for around 4 hours and can be recharged with the USB-C cable. All of this sits in a body that weighs just 840 grams that can be wirelessly controlled straight from your iOS or Android smart device. Links to the Dwarf Mini and my review on my website can be found in the video description below. So when you're going to image the sun, put this little solar filter before the lens of the Dwarf Mini Smart Telescope and you're good to go. And remember, never look directly into the sun as you might go blind, and let's wait for the clouds to dissipate so we can actually see the sun and take some images with this Dwarf Mini Smart Telescope. Setting up the Dwarf Mini is really easy. Just put it on any photo tripod and make sure your tripod is properly leveled and power on the telescope. After that, download the Dwarf Lab app from the Play or App Store for your Android or iOS device. Open the app, select Connect and make sure the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connections are on. The app will find the Dwarf Mini automatically. Select the Dwarf Mini and it will automatically connect to your smart device showing connection successful, after which it automatically returns to the home screen. Then click the live button to see the live view of the telescope. This whole procedure took less than a minute and I found it really easy to do. After tapping live and with the solar filter in front of the Mini, I used the wide field view and the control buttons at the bottom left to center the sun in the telephoto lens's field of view. After that, I clicked the telephoto view at the top left and the live view switched to the telephoto view. I clicked the small preview icon at the top left to deselect the preview window of the wide field view, and I continued to center the sun in the telephoto view. When swiping the controls, the movements were too large, so I had to tap the control arrows very gently to bring the object into the field of view. After that, I selected focus at the top right and chose autofocus, which did a great job focusing on the couple of sunspots that were visible on the sun that day. All that took another minute or so. I selected the little camera icon at the top of the screen, which allowed me to choose one of 3 modes on the Dwarf Mini. General for regular photos, videos and time-lapses, Solar System for the sun, the moon and planets, and Deep Sky for objects far outside our solar system. I selected Solar System and tapped Sun. The app warned me that I should use the ND solar filter and put the sun in the center of the telephoto view. As I already done that, I tapped Done Already and the Dwarf Mini closed and opened again, which is probably its calibration routine for automatically centering the sun in its field of view. After that was done, The live view showed a text at the bottom of the view stating that the Mini was tracking the sun automatically. I then tapped Parameter, which showed me that I was using the Astro filter with an automatic shutter time, a gain of 0, and a 75 count, which indicates the number of photos the Mini plans to stack. As I was pleased with these settings, I didn't change them and decided to tap the red Solar System shutter button to capture the sun. This actually started the process of live stacking images of the sun. The Dwarf Mini began taking 75 images of the sun and stacking each image on top of the previous one, which significantly increases the resolution and quality of the picture. This process is well known in astrophotography as live stacking. The automatic settings of the Dwarf Mini showed the sun in a pleasant yellowish color. Although astronomers know the sun is actually white, I like this colorized golden view of the sun. I zoomed in a bit to check the improvements in the picture's resolution with each additional stacked image. After taking 75 photos of the sun, I decided to end the stacking process. Here's the picture of the sun I took that day with the Dwarf Mini. The details are pretty decent for a smart telescope with a 30mm aperture and a 150mm focal length. Note that the Mini also saves the individual photos as well as the stacked images in FITS format on its memory card, so you can also download and process these images on your computer using stacking software many solar system astronomers love, like AutoStack4, WaveSharp, or AstroSurface. Alright, so let's wait until nightfall to image the moon and some deep sky objects in the autumn sky with the Dwarf Mini Smart Telescope. As we wait for nightfall and the moon, let me tell you something about the sponsor of today's video, which is Brilliant. Brilliant is a unique app that helps you become a better thinker and problem solver with thousands of visual interactive lessons in math, science, programming, data analysis, and AI. You learn by doing, so while you're mastering specific topics, you're also sharpening your critical thinking skills. This time I want to highlight the data courses. I especially loved how exploring data visually turns messy numbers into clear charts you can interpret at a glance. Brilliant helps you to spot trends, outliers, and patterns as you interact. The regression and classification takes it further. You'll build simple models, test accuracy, and understand why a prediction works using real-world data sets from places like Airbnb, Spotify, and Starbucks. It's hands-on, fun, and it sticks. So to learn for free on Brilliant, go to brilliant.org/Wido's Astro Forum, scan the QR code on screen, or click the link in the video description below. My viewers also get 20% off an annual premium subscription for unlimited daily access. Capturing the moon is very similar to capturing the sun with the Dwarf Mini. I used the wide field view and controls to center the moon in the telephoto view and switched the main display to telephoto by tapping on the telephoto preview in the top right. Once again, the wide field lens made it easy to center objects in the telephoto view. I tapped autofocus again and it automatically focused on the moon and adjusted the exposure settings, giving me a nice view of the 60% lit moon that night. In Solar System mode, I selected the moon and the Dwarf Lab app reminded me to place it in the center of the telephoto view. Since I'd already done that, I tapped Done, and the Dwarf Mini calibrated by closing and reopening the telescope, after which it confirmed it was actively tracking the moon. After autofocusing once again to ensure sharp focus, I tapped the red shutter button to stack 20 photos of the moon. Happy with those initial results, I decided to go a little deeper and set the capture count to 250 to create a stacked image of the moon. Here are the results of the automatically stacked images by the Dwarf Mini without any editing on my part. Given the Mini's aperture and focal length, these photos turned out pretty decent. I do see a slight increase in quality between the 20 images and the 250 images I stacked of the moon, but the differences are subtle. As mentioned earlier, both the individual and stacked photos are saved in FITS format, so you can use a USB-C cable to download them on your computer and process them manually to your liking. Alright, let's move on to capture some deep sky objects. One great feature of the Dwarf Mini is its optional equatorial mode for tracking deep sky objects. As Earth turns, the stars move in a curved path that varies with your location. In EQ mode, you align the telescope with the celestial pole, so it tracks objects more accurately than with a level tripod, like when I captured the sun and the moon. Better tracking lets you take longer exposure photos to capture the faint light of deep sky objects like stars, galaxies, and glowing nebulae far beyond our solar system. To put the Dwarf Mini into EQ mode, I first selected Deep Sky mode and tapped the three dots on the left of the live view. This opened a menu on the right with EQ mode as an option. After tapping it, a warning reminded me to point the telescope upward towards the stars. As the Mini was already pointed at the stars, I tapped Continue, and I saw a new screen advising me to use a stable tripod, a compass, and a level. I only had a tripod, but I continued. The next screen played a very user-friendly video showing how to enable EQ mode. It asked me to point the back of the telescope north, so the front faces south, and tilt it upward. As I was in the northern hemisphere, I pointed the back of the telescope towards Polaris, the North Star, and put the Dwarf Mini into what I thought was roughly a 52-degree angle to match my latitude. After that, I tapped Next and the Dwarf Mini calibrated its position for about 30 seconds and reported I was already polar aligned within 3 degrees. Lucky me! I clicked the Be More Precise button, after which the Dwarf Lab app showed me another very useful video to angle the tripod a few degrees left and up. So I angled the telescope a bit left and up, after which I clicked Next. The Dwarf Lab app recalculated its position and showed I was now within 2 degrees of the North Celestial Pole. I was happy with that result and tapped Ready, which took me back to the live view. Because clear autumn nights in the Netherlands are pretty scarce, I decided to image 4 deep sky objects in that single clear night, spending about an hour or 2 on each object. I started with the Pleiades, also known as the Seven Sisters. To find it in the night sky, I selected Atlas in Deep Sky mode in the Dwarf Lab app, which opened in portrait mode. I clicked on the magnifying glass and saw a list of recommended objects to image, and I used the search bar to type M45, which is what Charles Messier called this beautiful open star cluster. After selecting M45, Atlas showed me a capture preview, and I was happy to see that the Pleiades fit exactly in the field of view of the Mini. I clicked on the photo icon at the bottom right, and the Mini began calibrating itself as it did with the moon and the sun, after which it automatically slew to M45 and started tracking it. In the parameters, I chose the Astro filter as the Pleiades is a broadband object, and I set the shutter to 60-second exposures. The Mini can take up to 2-minute-long exposures, but I decided to leave it at 60 seconds. As I was using a budget tripod, I was polar aligned within about 2 degrees, and there was some wind at night. I left the gain at 60, which is about what is recommended for this camera sensor. I set the count to 999 to see what would happen. The Mini took a minute or so to initialize, and before taking the first photo, it gave me a message that my imaging time was about 16 hours and that the Mini would probably run out of power before that time, as it has about a 4-hour battery life. It also said that details of the object would get better after 10 minutes, which is Dwarf Lab's way of explaining what stacking is in one sentence. So, similar to stacking images of the sun and the moon, each stacked photo increases the details in a deep sky image, as you are adding more faint light from an object to your stacked image. I clicked Don't Remind Me and OK, and the Mini started stacking 60-second photos of the Pleiades. I noticed it took a couple of minutes for the Mini to get the tracking and stacking right, so I'd advise you to be patient during the first couple of minutes, as the Mini may need some time to settle and start stacking your images properly. After about 75 minutes, I decided to stop the capture process, at which point the Dwarf Lab app had stacked about 60 photos of M45, so that's roughly 1 hour in total. I long pressed the red shutter button in the app, which forced the Mini to stop capturing the Pleiades. As you can see, a plane crossed the field of view at the top left, leaving a nice reminder of 2 orange stripes. At least now I can tell you that this telescope really does take live photos of the night sky, including clouds, planes, and satellites that might ruin your stacked astrophotography photo. But as I said before, the Mini stores each individual picture and the stacked images on its memory card, so you can download and stack the images yourself using any software you like. Or you can even use the in-app Stella Studio to process some of your pictures, but I prefer using a bigger screen than my smartphone or tablet. So here's the stacked image of M45, where I deleted that one photo with the plane crossing the field of view before doing any additional editing. And this is my 1 hour image of the Pleiades after editing it in an advanced processing program called PixInsight. I think that for a 1 hour stacked image under urban skies with city light pollution, this looks pretty decent. I could spend multiple hours capturing the Pleiades, which would give me an even better photo, but instead I jumped into Atlas again and searched for M31, the Andromeda Galaxy, our closest neighboring galaxy about 2.5 million light-years away. The Atlas indicated that the Andromeda Galaxy was too big to capture in the native view of the 2-megapixel camera sensor of the Mini. But the Mini does come with a trick up its telescope sleeve. It has a mosaic mode. So by tapping the little rectangle on the top right, you can broaden the view by 2 times the size of its native camera sensor. I decided to take a square 1 by 1.5 view, which would just about fit the Andromeda Galaxy in the picture. And I clicked on the photo icon, after which the Dwarf Mini automatically slewed to its next object. The Andromeda Galaxy is also a broadband object, so I left the parameters the same with the Astro filter selected, the shutter time at 60 seconds and the gain at 60. I tapped the red shutter button again, after which the Mini started capturing M31. As the camera sensor of the Mini is not big enough to capture the entire object in one photo, it switches between 2 views. It attempts to take about 20 stacked photos in the first view, after which it automatically slews to the next view to take another 20 photos, and then it slews back to the first one, and this pattern repeats itself until the number of photos you asked for are captured, or until you long press the red shutter button to end the capturing process. So the catch is that with a bigger camera sensor, you would be able to photograph the Andromeda Galaxy in one picture, which leads to more exposure time for the whole object. For example, after 1.5 hours, I captured about 80 minutes of the Andromeda Galaxy, but those 80 minutes are divided into 2 separate views. So that's 40 minutes for each view instead of 80 minutes for the whole object. I stopped the capturing session after 90 minutes. The Dwarf Mini stores the integrated stacked photos as well as the separate images for each of the views in separate maps on its memory card for further editing. Here's what the unedited raw stacked image of the Andromeda Galaxy looks like. And this is the photo after processing it in PixInsight. So for a 2 times 40-minute panel under urban skies, this doesn't look bad at all. For an even smoother picture, you want to spend more hours on a single object and move to a dark sky location. Next, I pointed my Mini towards the famous Orion Nebula, or M42, which is the nearest stellar nursery at about 1,344 light-years away. I used a USB-C cable to recharge the battery while I kept using the Mini, which worked like a charm. I decided to create a mosaic again because there's a nice object called the Running Man Nebula just above M42. I left everything exactly the same in terms of filters, shutter time and gain. I captured the two views for about 90 minutes again. And here is the unedited mosaic photo of the Orion Nebula with the Running Man Nebula just above it. And here is the processed photo again. Not bad at all for about 2 times 40 minutes per view. As a final object, I decided to go for the Hard Nebula, which is an active H2 region rich in ionized hydrogen and oxygen gases. The duo band filter on the Dwarf Mini is very well suited to capture such an emission nebula while blocking out other sources of light such as city light pollution. Again, the Hard Nebula didn't fit the native view of the Mini, so I created another mosaic to capture the whole nebula. After about 2 hours, I captured about 50 photos per panel, and here is the unedited raw mosaic photo. And here is the edited photo of the Hard Nebula. Finally, I do want to mention that the focal length and aperture of the Mini are way too small to capture any details of the planets in our solar system. Here's what happened when I pointed the Mini towards Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system. You do see the 4 large Galilean moons orbiting Jupiter, which is nice, but you cannot see any of the surface details. You need a much bigger telescope for that. At this point, we're over 20 minutes into the video, and I didn't even tell you about all kinds of additional perks that come with the Dwarf Mini. First off, you can use station mode to connect the Mini to your local home network, so you can connect to the Mini from anywhere inside your home, which may save you a trip to the cold outside night sky. The Dwarf Lab app also has a scheduling module, so you can fully automate your imaging sessions during a particular night. Finally, the Dwarf 3 has an in-app editing studio called Stellar Studio, where you can denoise your images, create starless images, and more.